what are what are the superpowers we have? No one's guiding us in that, which then means that when we get to college or whatever, we have to pick a job or a major even or a job. It's kind of arbitrary. It's kind of like, when I was a senior in college, I found myself with my leather bound, folder with my resume inside with the campus insignia on it at a consulting interview. Any consultants out there? Anyways, in my school, it seemed like everyone was going to be a consultant. I studied physics and philosophy, so it's not exactly on the consultant track. And I'm there in a second round interview. I felt very flattered because they accepted me for a second round. And I was sitting there, and they got me a fancy hotel in New York overnight. I was feeling great about myself until the next day. I'm in the second round interview, and they asked me, "Oh, so tell us, why do you want to be a consultant?" I don't. How do I tell them I don't really know what a consultant does? Um, I didn't really know how to tell. I waffled through something, but it's just the nature of it. It's the nature of it. There's a cattle kind of mentality on a college campus. It's supposed to be the intellectual elite and blah 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 blah. At the end of the day, when people are looking for jobs, they just go wherever people are going. And if you had two job offers and one paid you twice as much as the other one, it's like not a question. Like obviously you take the one that pays more. It has nothing to do with who you are and what your strengths are and what's your identity and what gives you energy and what puts you into flow. That's not part of the equation. And I find it sad and I find it scary. It's sad because when a person doesn't use their primary strengths, their energy gets sapped over time. And it's scary because these are major decisions. We can always change careers and things like that, but it takes a lot and a person can get really stuck. And sometimes a person doesn't have the strength or the courage and confidence to be able to do it until they hit a midlife crisis or whatnot. So that's what I want to speak about today. It's kind of a part two to last week. There's a lot more to talk about self-esteem, but I think such a major part of self-esteem is knowing who you are uniquely. Last week we spoke about who your identity is a function of the effort you put in and how what you do with your skills. But over here it's who are you? Your confidence in who you are uniquely, so that you can make those decisions with courage and with strength to make it through the hard times, because this is what I have to do. I'll just pause in case anyone has any thoughts that went through their heads, or questions or lingering questions from last week. No. What's on Netflix tonight, by the way? Anyone who's watching? Anything interesting? Okay. Okay, so what I want to share with you is a Mishnah from Pirkei Avot. A Mishnah, I don't know if you learned Mishnah here. Mishnah is a highly compressed unit of Torah wisdom. It's very lightweight. It was meant to be memorized. There are still schools today, mostly in Israel, where kids between the ages of 10 and 15, they commit to memory the entire body of Mishnah. It's basically like a conceptual table of contents of the entire body of Torah wisdom. And it has 60 volumes. One of them is about personal development. It's totally focused on personal development. All of Torah and mitzvahs are about developing the person as a person, but primarily the focus is on mitzvot, on laws, rituals. Mitzvot, you know what mitzvah are. But Pirkei Avot is about ethics and character development directly. So I just want to start with that, and then we're going to move to a further kind of deepening of that concept, and we'll go till 8:40. We have 30 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Stop me at any time, please. Okay. And if you're waving at me and I don't see you, just unmute yourself and say, "Hey, Rabbi Jack, hold your horses for a second. I got a question." Okay. So here we go. Okay. I'm just going to read it. It's in Hebrew here for all you Hebrew scholars. Okay. But I'm going to read it in English. I'm going to read this one and this one. Okay. 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 Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the leader of of the Jewish community that was left in Jerusalem, in Israel, at the time of the destruction of the temple, so 2,000 years ago. He received the oral tradition from Hillel and Shammai, who are his predecessors. If you ever went to Hillel on campus, named after this man, he used to say, if you have learned much Torah, don't claim credit for yourself, because for such a purpose were you created. Anyone want to rephrase that in their own words? What's he saying over here? If you learned a lot of Torah, don't claim credit for that, because that's what you were created for. What does that mean? If you were listening last week, this should resonate.
Well, it's saying that we're here to study Torah. So it's like, should you be congratulated for doing what you're supposed to do?
That's right. I would do it, but it's a little bit controversial. But there was, in my day, when I was a kid, there was a Chris Rock skit about this, about people asking you to congratulate them for things they're supposed to do. I used to do a pretty good imitation, but I'll spare you. But anyways, that's right. In other words, if you know that you have great potential, when you do great things with that potential, you're not going to feel arrogant about it. That's who you are. That's what you were born to do. Knowing who you are, knowing what you were born to do, allows you to have confidence that this is what I was born to do. But it also simultaneously allows you to be humble about it. You don't take credit for yourself. It's like, listen, I just work here. This is just this is my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. I was given these tools and I'm going to use them. Okay. Just keep that in mind, because the rest of it is connected to that. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 disciples, and they were these: Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, the son of Hyrcanus; Rabbi Joshua, the son of Hananiah; Rabbi Yossi, the Cohen, priest; Rabbi Shimon, the son of Nathanael, and Rabbi Elazar, the son of Arach. 5 students. He, Rabbi Yochanan, used to list their praises, list their virtues. Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Hyrcanus, is a plastered cistern who loses not a drop. What does that mean? He's a plastered cistern. What's a cistern? Anybody? Engineers? One of those English words. It's like, you might as well leave it in Hebrew, because I don't know what it means in English. You don't know what a cistern is? No? A cistern is a tank. It's a water tank. In the desert, if you travel in Israel and you go to archaeological sites, you'll find that every site, wherever there's an ancient city, they have to have a cistern. If you go to Masada, you'll see that they had a mikveh, but they also had a cistern. A cistern was a huge, deep kind of tank. What makes it plastered? Why would you plaster that tank?
So nothing leaks out.
Good. So you make it extra waterproof, right? Because if it's just stone, so it could be porous and the water can kind of leak out over time. So what is he talking about? What is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai saying about Rabbi Eliezer, son of Hyrcanus?
He retains all the knowledge that he learns.
Beautiful, right? And that he trained himself. He plastered himself. He plastered himself to make sure that he doesn't forget anything, right? Not a drop. Everything he ever learned, he remembers. Okay, that's what his teacher said about him. Rabbi Joshua, son of Hananiah, happy is the woman that gave birth to him. What do you think about that? What's strange about that?
I kind of make it seem like his accomplishments are so great that it carries through the rest of his family tree.
Right, but normally you would say if you have great accomplishments, usually it carries through your family tree forward.
Yeah.
Right, not back.
Retroactive. Yeah.
Retroactive, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you something interesting about Rabbi Joshua. The Talmud says that his mother, when she was pregnant with him, would sit in the yeshiva because she wanted him to be accustomed to hearing words of Torah. Now that's like very sweet. That's like playing Beethoven for your babies, right? But what we see from over here and what you see from the rest of the Talmud is that Rabbi Joshua had a unique relationship to his wisdom, that he had a very intuitive, emotionally rich connection. He was very good with people, excellent with people. He understood people extremely well. He was able to teach people exactly what they had to hear. And over here we see that there's a connection, that what his strength was his connectivity. And and it's credit to his mother, that his mother, right, is not just some random lady who physically gave birth to him. She's not just a physical surrogate. She is fortunate. She's happy that she raised such a kid. She gave a kid who's not just a brain. He's a brain who's so connected with, to his heart and to his body. Everything he learns, his Torah is integrated in him. Anyways, that's his praise. Rabbi Yossi, the Cohen, is pious. Okay. Interesting. You have to understand what being pious means. Rabbi Shimon, the son of Netanel, is one who fears sin. Okay. And Rabbi Elazar, son of Arach, is like a spring that ever gathers force. What's that one? That's kind of evocative. What do you think? What do you think he was like?
It seems like it's saying something similar, because if you're ever gathering force, it means you're not losing any.
That's true.
Similar to the cistern statement.
Anyone think that there's some difference to the cistern? A difference between a cistern and a spring? It works better if you unmute. If anyone's saying really brilliant things, if you unmute, we can hear you. Trying to lip sync over here. Anyone? Oh, Brian unmuted. Getting my hopes up.
Cistern, like you have to artificially plaster it.
Yeah,
whereas
good.
Spring can kind of naturally flows. It's like a stream.
Good. So a spring is naturally flowing. A cistern is just, the water is just sitting there. If you don't want to lose it, you have to plaster it. But the spring is the water's coming out with great force. So it's someone who is, if a cistern is being like a cistern, someone who has great memory. What would you say is about the person who's like a spring, a wellspring? How would you describe them? They are highly
verbose.
Okay, verbose. Verbose could be good or bad. Usually I think it's bad. An intellectual praise of someone who's they're like a wellspring. I would say they're highly creative, right? There's a big difference between someone who has a great memory and someone who's highly creative, right? They're both amazing things, but they're different, right? So Rabbi Eliezer is like has amazing memory. He remembers everything. And Rabbi Elazar is like a wellspring that gathers force. Okay, he's super creative. Okay, anyways, Rabbi Yochanan, their teacher, used to say, if all the sages of Israel were on one side of the balance, and Rabbi Eliezer, son of Hyrcanus, the first one, he would outweigh them all. Abba Shaul said in his name, if all the sages of Israel were on one scale of the balance, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus was also with them, and Rabbi Elazar, the wellspring, was on the other scale, he would outweigh them all. Okay, so they have a debate. There's a debate over here of what's greater. By the way, let's just take a quick poll over here. Raise your hand if you think it's better to have a great memory than to be creative. Nobody? Okay, raise your hand if you think it's better to be creative than have a great memory. Interesting. Let me just go back for a second. Anybody pro memory? That's amazing. It's a very 2021 thing. There's an amazing book. I highly recommend it. Probably written about 10 years ago, but it's still good. It's called The Shallows. The Shallows, about what computers are doing to our brains. Really interesting, like a pop neuroscience book, kind of analyzing the studies of what computers and internet have done to our brains. And one of the interesting things is that we've had this false notion that we don't have to remember things anymore because it's all on my hard drive or on the cloud or whatever. I don't have to remember anything anymore. And that notion has been proven to be false. If you don't remember things, you can't think with them. Like, you can't outsource your memory. I mean, you can, but it's not going to help you think unless you have those ideas in your head. You can only think using the ideas that are in your head. So it's an interesting phenomenon. Okay, but anyways, back to our regularly scheduled program. Okay, fine. So now comes the experiment. Okay, we got it so far. We're okay. We're following. Okay, the experiment. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan, the teacher of the 5 students, said to them, "Go forth, get out of here, and observe which is the right way to which a person should connect. Okay, yidabek is the Hebrew. Yidabek is anyone know what devik is? Anyone go to Jewish day school or Hebrew school? Devik?
Glue.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Glue. Okay. So what's the path in life that a person should become glued to? That you should be so connected to that it becomes second nature. Okay. What's the path? What's the path in life? What's the way to go? So they go out and they do their thing. They walk around town with their little notebooks, and they do their mindfulness exercise about what's the way of life, and they come back. Here's what they say. Rabbi Eliezer says, Ayin Tova, a good eye. Rabbi Joshua says, a good friend, Chaver Tov, a good friend. Rabbi Yossi said, Shachen Tov, Shachen, a good neighbor, right? In modern Hebrew, a neighborhood is a shechuna. So Shachen is a neighbor, and shechuna is a neighborhood. So being a good neighbor, that's the best thing. Rabbi Shimon said, Haro'eh et hanolad, foresight. Literally, one who sees what is born out of a situation, right? The ability to see what's going to come from a situation, right? If you see a situation and say, oh, I know the consequences of this, I see what's going to happen, that's the best. And Rabbi Elazar says, Lev Tov, a good heart. A good heart is generally associated with generosity. Okay, what do we think over here? Let's take a vote. Raise your hand. I want to be able to see everybody. How can I see everybody? This. Okay. Okay, I can see you. Okay. Raise your hand if you think that having a good eye. A good eye means, by the way, being positive. Okay, being positive, looking for positive. That's the way to go in life. If you had to pick one way to go, one piece of advice, raise your hand if you think being positive is the way to go. But yeah, I'm going to do this easier, okay? You're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, okay? You're going to vote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ready? The first one is being positive. The second one is being a good friend. The third one is being a good neighbor. The fourth one is foresight. And the fifth one is being generous. Vote. Let's see. Hillary, is that 4 or 5? Your name is covering.
5.
Oh, okay. Hillary's went 5. Okay, good. Interesting. Okay. Being generous. Louisa is saying being positive. At least I don't see. Ileana and Ileana's friend, or I don't know which one's which. Okay. We have a debate over here. 1 and 5. Okay. Alex, you saying 5? At least are you not voting, or is your hand below the screen? You abstaining? And we have 1 abstention. Okay. Ashley Namdar, 1. Brian, 5. Bar, is that 1? Reb Monty, 1. Jillian, 1. Interesting. Rabbi Lewis, you voting or you abstaining? We already have 1 abstention. It's okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Thanks for playing. Did we get one that was in the middle? Did we get a 2, 3 or 4? Did I miss that? Did anyone do 2, 3 or 4? We only got 1s and 5s. It's actually very interesting. We only got 1s and 5s because that was the debate over here, was who's better, number 1 or number 5, right? The 2 opinions at the bottom was 1 and 5. So it seems like that's a kind of recurring thing. The ones in the middle, they don't get so many votes. But okay, thank you for playing. Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment. Okay, fine. Those are 5. So Rabbi Yochanan said to them, I prefer the words of Elazar, the son of Arach, for in his words are your words are included. Who's this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And remember? No? Anyways, he says the good heart one. Okay? For in his words your words are included. And Rabbi Yochanan said to them, go forth and observe which is the evil way. And they go on and they say, what's the bad way? Okay? And it goes on and on. Okay? Does anybody have any questions on these 2 pieces of Mishnah? Did anything strike you as strange, interesting, thought-provoking, unusual, confusing, upsetting, exciting?
Why did he opt to give each of his students a different kind of compliment, I guess, instead of telling them all the same thing so that they don't start fighting afterwards and kind of trying to figure out like, oh, what's the best trait?
You're saying why did he start off by telling them specific compliments?
Yep.
You're saying that if you give separate different compliments, that people kind of fight over them?
Like they could have disagreements over which is quote unquote like the best compliment.
Well, so it's interesting you say that. I've actually never thought of that specifically. It's not clear whether he told them their praises. He just says he would recount. In other words, he knew their praises. He identified himself. But it's a good question of, is it a good idea for a teacher to make public his unique praises of each person? It could be a dangerous enterprise, so I think your point is well taken, but I don't see them fighting over it. But that would be interesting to consider. Anybody else have something that occurred to them? What's this about? What's he doing over here? What's the experiment? Why is he making them go out? Isn't he the teacher? Isn't it a strange thing for a Torah teacher to ask? What's the right way of life?
I mean, you can only learn so much in a classroom, right? They have to observe the real world.
Good. Is there a right answer in the real world over here?
Not really.
Not really. Anyone?
Or maybe.
I don't know. You tell me.
I think it's
Sure.
a mixture of different virtues like intersect, not necessarily.
The different versions. I couldn't hear the beginning of what you said. Say it again, Brian.
Yeah, so I think it's a mixture that like in real life, like no one like has neat categories. It all kind of like blend.
Okay, the people have different categories, but you see that Rabbi Yochanan felt that they were quite different, right? The praise of each one is quite different, and the experiment, had interesting results. They actually came back with really quite kind of different results over here. It's going to be interesting at night over there for Eliana Svechin and her friend, because they had really quite different beliefs about the right way of life. They're going to have really interesting arguments when we're done over here about the right path in life. So these students, they actually have radically different opinions about what's the way to go in life. Oh, I thought you were unmuting, Ileana. I'm like trying to get you to say something. Any thoughts? No? Which one's Ileana, by the way? Okay, I'm glad you agreed about that. That was helpful. Okay, so it turns out that the Maharal of Prague, the way he explains this, Maharal lived about 500 years ago, one of the important Kabbalists in Jewish history. The Maharal explains that this experiment is an experiment in identity. That basically the teacher wanted to make sure that number one is that he hit the nail on the head, that he knew his students. And the way he would know was he couldn't really tell inside of the classroom. The classroom is too much of an ivory tower. So he said, get out of the ivory tower, go out in the world, observe people, live life, come back when you have a really strong, clear opinion about what is the way of life. What is your advice? What is the character trait that a person should work on? That if they work on that trait, they're going to reach all the other character traits. And they each had a different opinion. People are not normally this self-aware. There's a certain level of self-awareness that you're able to not only abstractly think about things, but you're able to see it with your eyes. I think the fact over here that people have different opinions, number one, number five, it shows you that you have kind of visceral opinions, and that is telling about you. Okay, so the way you look at the world, the way you see other people, is telling about who you are. Right? It's not a question about what's going on in the world. That's not what his teacher was saying. He said, I want to know how you see the world. I want to know how you see the world. He then tells us, I'll tell you how I see the world. Right? He says, I see that number five is right. Right? That's what he said. I see that Rabbi Elazar's words are right. Having a good heart, generosity. I think that's the way to go. But that's just me. That's just me. If I wanted you to believe that this was the way to go, I would have told you in the first place. I wouldn't have sent you out of the ivory tower, right? Says, I want you to know who you are, because if you know who you are, then you can guide your life with it. Just want to show you. Oh, man, there. Oh, friend is Rachel. Oh, hi, Rachel. I'm very bad with multitasking with the chat box. Sorry about that. Okay, one more illustration of this. Okay. Anyone know what we're looking at over here?
Some kind of smelter.
Smelter, yes. Gene, shh. You know what's up. But you didn't know cistern, right, Gene? Or did you?
I don't
Did you
know.
know? You knew it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just didn't want to hog the mic. It's a smelter. What is a smelter?
It's raw ore and turns it into some solid material.
That's right. Right. So it takes like a raw metals that have impurities, and it heats it up to a very high temperature, and all the gunk, all the stuff you don't want, drops out of it. So let's look at a verse in Proverbs that utilizes this as a metaphor. It says, a smelter for silver, mitzaref lekesef, and a furnace for gold, upekur lezahav, ve'ish lefi mahalalo, and a person according to his praises. Anyone want to interpret this verse from Proverbs for us? Anyone want to take a crack at it? Anybody? No? Please? A little help? Anybody else? No one feels bad for me? That's awkward?
I
Okay.
can't wait, but I'll give it a shot.
Oh, hi, Tatiana.
Oh, hi, I'll turn on my video. So I think it's here that like the two metals have their own purpose, and like an extension of that is the appreciation for that purpose.
Cool. Okay, that's good. So we need to to get to the purpose. Every one of us has a purpose, and just like when you smelt metal, right? When you smelt ore, you're trying to get to the essence of the thing, right? There's all this other junk in it, right? You have iron ore. You want to get to pure. You want to get to steel. You got to take out all the junk. You have gold ore. I don't know if it's called that, but let's say it's called that, gold ore, and has all this junk in it. You want to get to what's the gold, the essence of it. So just like you purify metals, how do you purify a person? How do you know who a person is? So there's one way. Okay, this is the approach of Rashi. Right, here's my little diagram of smelting. Okay, Rashi says like this: the essence of a person can best be seen through that which others consistently praise him or her for. I don't know if you guys are in the blind dating industry, but rabbis are. We try to set people up. It's part of our job. I'm not so good at it, but I try. I've made two. I've done a lot of bad ones, but two. Okay, so when you do this, you have to ask. You have to call around, right? You have to call around and say, "Hey, tell me about this person." So here's what you shouldn't do. Okay, when you call around and say, "I'm calling about Josh Goldberg," right? I want to know about Josh Goldberg. Is he smart? What are they going to say? Like, yeah, he's smart. Is he funny? Yeah, he's pretty funny. Is he fun to be around? Yeah, I think he's fun to be around, right? That in a court of law, what's that called?
Like leading the witness or something.
That's right. Leading the witness, right? Ileana and Rachel, you guys are confusing me because your left is my right, but okay. But it was helpful. I appreciate that. Okay, so that's called leading the witness. So what you want to do is if you want to call, if someone ever sets you up on a blind date, you want to make some calls. When you make the calls, you want to say, "Can you tell me about Josh? I just want to know. Just tell me about him." The first, second, and third things out of their mouths are going to be the most significant. Okay, if you start prying for things, there's going to be confirmation bias, and they're just going to say, "Yeah, right." Actually, I have a friend who's a total nutcase. Like he's a real nutcase. He's off the wall nutcase. And someone once called me, like asking about him. They say, hey, can you tell me about Josh? His name's not Josh. Like, can you tell me about Josh? It's like, yeah. And I was like, listen, since I have you on the phone, who's the girl? Tell me about the girl. Okay. So they tell me the girl. She's, no. Okay, great. I said, I don't think it's gonna work. They're like, what? They called me to ask me about the guy, and I asked about the girl. And I said, I don't think it's gonna work. I'm like, why not? I said, listen, my friend's a nut. He's like he's an off the wall nut, and the girl's got to be fun. If she's not fun, it's not gonna work. They're like, she's a lot of fun. She's like, I don't think she's fun. Like, she's a lot of fun. I was like, you didn't mention, you spoke for about 5 minutes. You said a ton of things. You didn't say she was fun. I mean, I'm sure she's a nice girl. I'm sure she can be fun, but that's not one of her salient characteristics, right? So like, wait a second, hold on a second. Let me make some calls. Let me get back to you. So they made some calls and they called back. They called me back and they said, we checked. She's a lot of fun. I was like, can you give me some examples of that, of what that means? They're like, let me make some calls. They call me back. They're like, yeah, like she's like the kind of girl who like plays catch with her siblings in the living room. Like, yeah, I don't think this is a good match. I'm sure she's a lovely girl, but it's just not a good match for my friend Josh. Anyways, that is the first understanding. Okay, the first understanding, the more simple understanding, is that if you want to know about a person, find out what other people say about them. Right? Some people call these eulogy virtues. Eulogy virtues are the kinds of things that after 120 years, people will say about this person at their funeral, right? What are their salient characteristics according to other people? Okay, here is the psychologically deeper reading from another great rabbi. So Rashi, who you may know, great rabbi, one of the first major commentators on the Torah and the Talmud, Rabbi Yonah of Chirona. Anyone know where Chirona is? Jean, I know you know. Anyone know where Chirona is? No? Yes. Anyone know what you know what city it's next to? What modern city it's next to? For the win? Their first language is not Spanish.
Barcelona. No.
Very good. Very good. I believe it's north of Barcelona, but it's a suburb of Barcelona. There's a major Jewish population, a lot of great sages over there. Anyways, Rabbi Yonah of Chirona says, the essence of a person can be best seen through that which he or she consistently praises others for. If you want to know who a person is, you could ask people about them, and that's wonderful. That's very telling. If everyone tells you they're very kind, they're probably very kind. It can't be that everyone from all these different situations, they know them through different places in life, they all say the person's kind. They must be seeing something. But if you want to know really, really who a person is, if you want to know who you are, so you have to figure out, who do you praise and what do you praise? We use this word values, right? What you value is what's meaningful and significant to you. If something's meaningful, significant to you, that's going to be the lenses through which you see the world are going to be through those values. So when you look at another person, what you're going to say is meaningful about them is going to be through those values. And there could be two people who are looking at the same person, but they praise them for radically different things. And that's because they themselves are different. Your values are a very deep indicator of who you are. And they can be seen, you can't see them directly, right? But you can see them through the way you see. And if you hear the way people talk about others, that's going to tell you a lot about who they are. And if you hear the way you talk about yourself, that's going to tell you who you are. If you permit me, can you permit me 2 more minutes? I think it'll make your discussion groups more interesting. Just a practical exercise for this, okay? You won't have time to do this now, okay? But I highly recommend. I found this exercise for me was life-changing, okay? Okay, choose 3 people you admire. Free write a paragraph for each of these people describing what you admire about them. Highlight and draw out themes that you discover running through all 3 of them. These things, the yellow, the pink, and the orange, right? You're going to see it's an amazing thing. What you respect about the people you respect will actually cut across all of them. And yes, it says something about them, but much more precise. It's a much more precise tool for telling you about yourself. Okay, so I highly recommend it. It does not take a tremendous amount of time. If you block out on a Sunday afternoon, an hour and a half in a nice place, get a nice coffee, right? You just free write about the 3 people you respect the most and why you respect them, what you admire about them. This is a tremendously powerful and very precise tool. Okay, that's what I want to share with you guys. I hope it was helpful and interesting, and hope you have good discussions.
Thank you, Reb Jack. Thank you for joining us these past 2 weeks. It's been wonderful. Really spurred on excellent discussions, and look forward to having you back in the future.
But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. If you have any questions or want any of those sources or anything like that, email here. Oh, they're gone. Oh, you can share with them.
I'll share. Yeah, I'll put it back when we get back.
Great. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Okay.
Thank you, Reb Jack. Yeah,
Pleasure. All the best.
mitzvahs.
Thank you so much.